All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this virtual discussion. My name is Jerry and I'm part of the People Matters team, and I want to welcome you all for this discussion this morning. We're very delighted to bring this conversation on thriving in a rapidly changing workplace, essential HR skills for success. And this is part of a series that we're curating along with Keka and also as part of our SME Corner. And we'll have an opportunity to share some reflections and hear from experts on this theme. So, without any further ado, I want to take this time to welcome our speakers for today. So, we have with us Vikash Maheshwari, who is the Associate Vice President for HR at Biocon Biologics, and he comes with about 25 years of experience in human capital management. And he's a versatile, results driven leader with a solid business acumen focused on developing a high performance workplace. It's great to have you with us, Vikas.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much.
We also have with us Squadron Leader Dimple Rawat, who is the Director for HR at Barco. And Dimple is an HR professional with 23 years of diverse experience in defense and the corporate world. And she's also the State Vice President for Wiki, UPHR, and she's also on the advisory board for Women with Wings. It's great to have you with us, Dimple.
Thank you, Jerry, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you. Looking forward.
Absolutely. We also have with us Kshitij Sanchan, who is the process coach at performance management at Keka. And for more than a decade, Kshitij has helped businesses drive 10x growth by designing effective talent management processes. And he assists organizations in replacing a command based structure to a more purpose and trust driven leadership model. And he's worked with over 500 organizations across the world. It's great to have you with us, Kshitij, today.
Thank you, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So I want to also announce to our audience that we will take questions at throughout this discussion, and as we talk about HR skills, we wanted to specifically get some reflections on the changing context of business. There's a need for greater flexibility, an emphasis on performance and experience, but also there's a lot of shift in terms of skills and jobs, and we want to get together to understand what this shift means for HR specifically. So, if you have any questions and reflections that you would like to share, use the chat section at the right hand side of your screen, and you can share your thoughts and feedback. We will take all the questions towards the end of the discussion. So we also have an announcement to make. This session will also end with a surprise gift. If you're staying with us till the end of this session, we have an ebook and an ebook on unlocking performance that will help you give a deeper dive into what this shift is going to look like and what approaches you can take within your respective organizations and as an individual HR leader as well. So we'll begin the discussion, but before we do that, I want to announce this poll question. So we want to understand from you, I think, while we sort of share our reflections, we want to ask you, which challenge do you consider the most significant when developing HR skills in a dynamic and changing workplace? I'll request my colleague Rakshita to share the link of the menti.com website and also the code where you can share your response. So you'll have to log into menti.com and use this code that is displayed at this on your screen, that is 64553954, and you can register your vote, and we would like to understand what is the top of mind challenge for you as an HR leader today. Whether is it related to technology advancement, is it related to diversity and inclusion demands, is it about balancing remote work, or is it about the changing legal and law regulation framework that's changing rapidly as well? Is it about fostering a continuous learning experience as an organization and as a learning culture that you'd like to see? So I think once we start getting responses, we will see some response as well. So Rakshita, I think once you're ready, you can share the results as well. So yeah, so what is the top challenge? I think while we wait for the results, I'll also open up to our speakers here today on what's changing, right? So Kshitij, can we start with you in this changing world of work and skills? Why, if you could answer, why HR skills have become so central, and also, okay, we are already getting the results here. So, learning and development for HR professionals seems to be a big challenge area, and I think that's the focus and scope of our discussion here today as well. So that's great. We see more and more people answering that. I think on number two is balancing remote work. We are also seeing adapting to technology advancements as a focus or a challenge area. So that's great. So with that, I want to lead into the first questions. I think even as these responses continue to come, Kshitij, over to you. What do you think is changing, and why is it so important for us to focus on HR skills?
Right. So thanks, Jerry, for asking the question. So let me set a quick reference to all our audience about what we are talking about here. So ever since, like, let's say, the changes which have become a new constant for the world, the journey of it kind of started with the COVID phenomenon happening to the world. So all the businesses went through a business continuity planning, where there were a lot of things which were required to be reiterated as per the new ways of working that were required to be done. So the change started there, which started creating more, what should I call it? Virtual beings, virtual people, which are now currently working remotely, and we still need their services, and we still need the workplaces to go on in that order. So this is where we kind of realized that there could be the dynamics of workplaces were very static until then, and now if we look at it, like, there are so many pivotals at play. The world cannot be just divided into simple white, blue collared or pink collared kind of employees. You have to look at it from a very different dimension now. So this is where the HR started getting more critical. The other aspect of why I look at it, that why it is changing, is also because earlier the vision and mission which every business has was largely a responsibility of a leader, which was which started the organization, or the core leadership bench that an organization had. But now, if you look at it, like, this vision and mission actually propels even at the base of the pyramid, if there is an employee which is working for the organization, would have a certain alignment towards that purpose and a vision. So things have changed. Things have changed because we as HR community have also been working on evolving workplaces and people and practices and the strategies and so forth. So this is where it is. While you navigate through change, information is one of the most handy thing that you can have at your purview. So that is why I think the maximum number of votes that we are getting right now is in a goal which is more directed towards learning and developing thyself, right? So from that aspect, I think that is something which has changed. We'll talk more on the sources, but I would like to go to the fellow speakers for their points.
Absolutely. Dimple, would you like to share your reflections on this question, please?
Yeah, so I absolutely resonate with what Kshitij is saying. And yes, there is a shift. Traditionally the HR was known for the manual work. We were doing the file management or data entry kind of the work. But I think thanks to the technology and AI-enabled tool, which has given us, a good, if you see, we have now bandwidth where we can focus more on the strategic HR work. We all know no business can succeed without or in isolation, so they need support. And now business knows, because of the good HR track record, that if they involve HR from the very beginning in the strategy making or formulation, which has from the conceptualization stage of planning, organizing, executing, implementing. So HR is not just going to be there as a listener, but HR is going to deliver and will bring value on the table. So they understand this. And in fact, last week I was talking to one of my HR colleague, and he gave a very good example that HR skills are like just the notes of music, sare gama, where every skill set is actually exhibited by one of the note. So maybe employee engagement or learning or development, and like an expert musician, that musician ensured that there is at the end there is a melodious music which he or she creates. Similarly, the HR people, they use these skills to the finest so that they bring out the best out of these people. So I think yes, there is a lot of shift because of the technology, because of the AI enabled tools, and it's just a journey. It has just begun. There is so much which we have to still unleash and see in our people. So that would be, let's my submission on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the results of the poll has not changed. I think significantly everyone is talking about fostering learning and development for HR professionals as the topmost challenge. I think this is a good peg for us to also understand some of the key factors that are changing the modern workplace dynamics. If I could go to Vikas, what are some factors according to you that are changing these dynamics, and how should businesses also respond to these changes?
All right, I'll make an attempt to answer that question because that needs literally a book of sorts. But something that I very strongly believe that while we heard a lot of good things about post-COVID, pre-COVID, what has changed in HR and how HR is the front line to enable a lot of best practices which actually help the organization stay resilient. But we in HR also love hashtags, isn't it? I mean, hashtag AI, hashtag metaverse, hashtag work from home, hashtag so on and so forth. So I think what has happened, at least in my view, over the last couple of years, is that the HR as a fraternity has really become very well informed, about how to handle adversity. Okay, what has also happened is that we have become more self-aware. I mean, if you look at the HR landscape today, and I'm saying grassroots level, most of our organizations do have challenges of disparate systems. We have challenges of data. We have challenges of data lying in multiple systems, at times in our random access memory here. Okay, so all of these challenges put together has forced us to think differently. Also, when you think of, let me just kind of give it a different twist. If you had to say that, what of this can be solved by HR? I think lots. Okay, let's start from something like flexibility. Okay, which we call the work from anywhere kind of a phenomenon. A best case in point is that ever since 2019, most of the EVPs that you see, there has been a 343% increase in the word flexibility being inserted into those job descriptions, etc., which never used to feature before. We solve for it, okay? And then this whole world of DEI, okay, where we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness. Now, a lot of this is again, it's not something that was organic to us. We created this. Okay, we created this as a need of an hour. We all know how unfair our systems were. Okay, how unfair our practices were. We have horror stories around that. HR facilitated that. And the reason we facilitated that is not because we wanted to say that, okay, we are a 50-50%, but because we felt the need, there was a sense of purpose. But I also want to say that, diversity is not, it's something that I keep saying everywhere. Diversity is about counting numbers. Inclusion is about making those numbers count. So I think the changing landscape for HR in diversity, therefore, is to move from diversity to, let's say, inclusion, and say, how are we measuring inclusion? Diversity can be held. It's all right. I mean, some bit of a talent acquisition strategy, tweak, you get your numbers there. But that's not enough. In fact, that's not even a start point. The start point is really when all the other genders in the organization, they feel included. And they feel that, okay, we are as much a part of this organization when it comes to key decision making. So these are some of the things. But then coming to skilling, I heard you all. I think HR is the most resourceful when it comes to learning and development. Okay, I mean, we tell others that to go to these resources, upskill yourself. So it's a little disappointing to see that we as an HR fraternity, at times we are out of resources, information to say, okay, where do I go to upskill myself? But there's tons out there. There is absolutely enough out there for us to look at. So yeah, that's a quick take on your question.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Vikas. I think one of the points that you highlighted is, how the HR is so central to this architecture of change, right? When you're talking about flexibility or DEI as well, the impact that HR can have really is a lot. In fact, I think Dimple was sharing a little earlier on, some of the examples that steps that they're taking in within their organization on DEI. And Dimple, if you could just illuminate on some of the things that you're doing.
Sure. Thank you so much. So yes, D&I, we know that this topic has suddenly gained importance, and we heard so much about this, I think, during COVID days. And this has been the KRA of everyone, I think, in the organization, the CHRO, CEO of the company. I think Vikas will also vouch for it. So it is, the KRA of everyone. So in our company, so first, okay, let me, tell everyone that D&I, a small part of D&I is women. So I will be talking about that part. Of course, we also have the overall, if you see the umbrella, we have campus hires, we have different geographical people, everything. But what we were lacking was we had a single digit women percentage in our company. So we thought, how can we increase it? And then we started a program called Women for Women, One Barco, where we are inviting one women speaker from the industry. She comes, she speaks about her own experience, her story of failures also, failure, success, and all the women of Barco are under one, in one room that particular day when this session happens. May it be our operation women or software technology women, and then we are discussing, and then they are sharing their stories with this guest who has come, and then we post it on the LinkedIn. So Jerry, seeing this post, I'm so happy that so many female, they got inspired and motivated, that in last 1.5 years I have more than 40 women who have joined us. So this has been a successful story for our company. So this example I wanted to share with you.
Right. That's fantastic, Dimple. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a great example. I think for us to also reflect on the different elements that really contribute to the success, right? From employee listening to designing and like also communicating. That's very central to the HR skills profession, and I think you've outlined that really well with the steps that you're taking. Dimple, I also wanted to understand if you were to think about this from a skills perspective, based on this example also, and also more broadly, what is your maybe step-by-step roadmap that you would share, from a new skills mandate perspective? How would you think as a business leader on the steps that you need to take?
Yeah, thank you for this question again. I think what, as a leader, we have to see, first of all, I think what Vikas said, that we are very resourceful when it comes to others. HR for HR, or when I have to go for any training, where do I go? Where do I get the, guidance from? So first of all is the skill, there is a skill analysis which needs to be done for your team members, that what are the skills they presently have, what are the future skills, what is the gap, can we impart those kind of trainings to our people? So I think this is the first step in any organization as a leader, which anyone needs to take. And also we need to encourage our HR team to go to the events. Like you had this People Matters event, such a big event in Gurgaon, and I ensured that my whole team was there. So we divided. So first day half of the team went, and second day another half of the team went. So it is very important that you have to encourage your people, inspire your people to attend these kind of webinars where they can know what is going on in the market, in the industry. Then I think it's important that every HR person has to understand that they have to transform from the traditional HR to the learning HR. It's very important. And when we are talking about the mentoring part, or when we are assigning the coach, we always do it outside, HR team. We never think of assigning a coach for our own HR. So it's very important, if we want to have that, skill development for our team. When we want to have a successor or a strong pipeline of HR people, we need to assign coach, mentoring, mentors with them, and cross-functional collaboration is also very important. So these would be some steps, I think, which will ensure that you are continuously upskilling your people, doing that gap analysis, and then imparting those kind of the skill sets into them, or inculcating the learning culture, I would say. That should be the theme of all the organizations for HR.
Right, absolutely. I'd also want to ask Vikas and Kshitij to probably weigh in on this question on how they're thinking about the shift from traditional to modern, and also what is their approach. I think Dimple had shared her approach, which is go out into the market, listen to what people are saying, observe the changes, and ensure that you have the resources in place, and then also follow it up with other things. I think she's spoken about coaching, mentoring as some of the tools that can sort of help in this journey. Because what according to you is maybe your approach to a question like this?
Similar to hers, I think the only add-on possibly I would have is to say that a lot of times we as HR professionals do not know what we need to learn. It's not about how do we learn, etc. It's more about what do I need to learn. I'll give you an example. Okay, if I was to say HR guys need to understand data and analytics, that's extremely vague. It's very fluffy. It's 30,000 feet in the air. But when I say, hey, listen, you need to understand data pattern analysis, okay, that makes possibly more sense. It also saves on learning time. Now, to enable that, something that we've been doing, I'm sure a lot of other organizations are doing, is establishing a skills center of excellence. And that's where we, bring in new age technologies like, Cake and many others. I'm sure they do Skill Cloud. So the way this tech works is that, you have roles in the organization, like in HR. So you go out, you benchmark these roles against the best in the class. Okay. So if I had to look at a delivery boy, which is a company which does the best deliveries across the globe. Okay. If it's Amazon, then I can today through technology pull in that what are the skills that they chase for those people. And once I get that skill inventory, suddenly I have a list of skills which I never thought of because I was very inward looking. I was always asking myself and my managers, but we were never looking at the world outside. And this could be across the globe. When you get that skill inventory and then you start chasing those skills as an area of development, I think that's more contextual. That's where the problem of what do I need to know? Okay, what do I need to learn gets solved given the context of my role, given the tenure, etc., that I perform. So I think that's just one little add-on that I would do, which is to say that there is technology available out there which helps people understand that what you need to do, not just HR, anybody else, and these are micro. These are extremely, these are subsets of competencies. The competency, knowledge, skill, attitude, etc. So this is just the skill that I'm talking about. So it makes my learning journeys more, less time consuming. Productivity doesn't get enhanced. You don't have to push me into a 4-day module where 3 days I think I already know is the 4th day, which is possibly relevant for me. So those problems are addressed here. Over to you, Kshitij.
Right. So what Vikas is saying is, it's absolutely right. The way I look at it, like somewhere the same question is what we answer here as a product, as an HR tech product, because the product is also learning. It's a cumulative learning of close to 200 people over a period of a decade, where we have been constantly giving our heads into what does the market need or what does the market really require in terms of getting enabled, right? So this. How do I look at it from a product standpoint? Like it was an easy structure to adopt to. So the easiest way to look at HR is like I see no other reason of an HR as a department, but those analytics or those actionable items that the HR is going to deliver to the business table in terms of what can actually impact the quality or the value that the business is generating for the community. Now, if you look at analytics largely, we all know the segments of it. There are descriptive analytics, there are diagnostic analytics, there are prescriptive and predictive analytics, and it's an incremental framework where you start practicing descriptive, and over a period of time, 2 years, 3 years, if you give to it, the logics and the logics that you will make will give you the idea of how diagnostic analytics should be run. If you run it a little further, you will have predictive and prescriptive in place. Now, so that is how we have also trained our tech, our tech in that area. So we have been constantly we chase about the problems. Like let's say 2015 when we started building this, the major issue that HR as a community was facing was majorly the operational work that was required to be done. Every day there were offer letters to be raised, there were candidates to be interviewed, there were people data required to be segregated, sorted, and kept and validated. There were letters, infinite amount of letters from tax declaration proofs to the policy documentation signage that was required. So many of the things were required at that point of time, and most of these were operational in nature. So the tech that we initially in the phase one, what we made the machine learn was majorly these tasks, so that we could actually bring them out, and then the HR as a community can tell us the next thing or next problems that we could solve, and it actually worked that way. So if you look now as a product, while we started as a typical HR ops platform, which helped in managing leaves, attendance, payroll, now we have over a period of time evolved ourselves as a pre-boarding, onboarding, talent acquisition, performance management, and maybe a PIP tool. So all these aspects become possibility if you just keep on learning, and that is how the workplaces and the entire idea works actually. Now, how it is changing now? I think the focus, one shift that I have seen is that although it always depends upon the maturity of the organization that you're in, what exactly you have to fight back or you have to take control of, decides what matters for you. But largely, if you look at it, like the focus from talent acquisition is now moving to talent development, where rather than trying to be lucky with getting good people, rather whoever you take in, right, let's develop them in a right dimension, where they should have that clarity, they should have that self accountability, where they understand that what they need to do. So the entire concept of HR, the entire thing that we do, it depends upon our buyer, our customer, our employee. If they don't have that self accountability, where they understand the criticality of the different aspects that we as an HR are reaching out to them for, they will never understand it. So I think that's where it is for now. These buy-ins, if they become clearer, I think all the other resources we have pretty much fulfilled with, right? The only aspect, uncharted territory, is where we have to take it to the people and make them understand that how it works for them and for the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kshitij, for sharing that. I wanted to also get in Dimple's reflection on this. I think Kshitij shared this example of talent development as a way of, building inroads into the employee, purpose and also maybe impact, right? So when we think about this broader employee impact and purpose, how do we sort of also inculcate it within our own HR, life, let's say, life cycle of the HR employee? What are your reflections on this, Dimple?
So, in fact, what Shita said, I just would like to add to it. It is true that it is no more recruiting or hiring somebody. It is more than that. It is the talent management where you are identifying the high potential and then you are nurturing them. You are talking to them. You are letting them know that how you feel about them. You are actually creating a strong a strong leadership pipeline. So it is very important that this shift which is there, people are observing it and people are liking it in your company. So it is important, and I think when we talk about the HR skills, I always tell my people that more than anything else, you should know where your the top line, bottom line is coming from. You should know the product of the organization. When we talk about the HR skills, we say that as Vikas also said, the data analytics skills that is required. When you're going to business and business wants some suggestions from you, and they want to if they say that they want to retain few people and because their salaries are low, but as HR, if you go back with the data to them, you make them understand that no, but the data position, the market position of these people is this, and you want to retain them. Why? Because there is no attrition. So these kind of data now, HR, the role of HR, that we also said that the transition which has taken place from the traditional to the strategic HR definitely have all these things. So technical know-how, data analysis, and I think the best thing which I am seeing now is the embracing the digital transformation, which everybody is doing, and which is now the top priority of every leader, including the HR leader. So that's what I think I can add to Kshitij, what he said.
Right, absolutely. I think, Kshitij, coming back to you, I think you helped us really understand the process, of like a product leader like Keka, goes through thinking through the product life cycle and the employee life cycle parallelly, right? And using those inputs. There seems to be a lot of shift in technology and conversations on technology. And I think, as Dimple is pointing out, when it comes to business analytics, we also heard from Vikas, mention the data analytics part of a skill that they need to develop. And, even at TechHR, I think one of the biggest conversations are around generative AI. One thing is just to keep track of all these changes that's happening from a tech perspective, right? How do you think HR leaders should prepare to update themselves also? To just keep track of these changes, and how can they sort of then better equip themselves to choose the right tools that will help them in the journey?
All right, so let's understand, where does this crew fit, the one that you are asking me, where should we place it? Let's understand where is it required in the first place. So now if you look at the workplace and an existence of an HR in the workplace, there are, as I said, there were so many operational works which are required to be done, tasks and stuff like that. There are strategic also, which have become more critical now. Why has criticality increased? Because the dynamics of businesses have increased. It's a cutthroat competition out there, where if you lose relevance to your user or to your buyer for a small period of time, you are out of the business. It's actually that cutthroat for now. So looking at that, the constant, what I have seen as a performance coach over a period of time in last decade, 2015, while I used to design processes for organization, it was a static method of doing performance, where in the month of April, I will go about sitting with leaders, and I will talk to them about what the organization did this year, what they did this year, what they aspire to do in the upcoming year, and we went about writing those set of strategic objectives or acceleration KPIs, which will boost or take the business to the next step. Right? It was a simple process by then. The goal setting was done, and the entire year the organization used to chase that. Managers and the goals used to see from top to bottom, and then eventually everything used to stay in place. In the last 10 years, what I've seen is that the dynamics have changed. It's not a static performance that organizations follow at all, because it has lost its relevance. The kind of ecosystems that we have right now, people are extremely learning in culture and nature by default. So when they are there, the objectives, whatever you write for them, the KPIs that I write for them, it is not relevant for them in the entire year. They will burn them down in 1.5 months, 2 months, and then they will again be a radical, individual who will be trying to attempt hundreds of other things and lose direction and focus. So what has changed is that this dynamicity has increased a lot. Keeping that aspect, the evolution of talent management practices, the goal setting processes need to happen in the organization is something which I see as a typical need. Like, let's say if we talk about KRA KPI management, it was more metric driven. If from 1960 to 2000, these 40 years of industrial revolution, the KPI method actually helped us go wherever we wanted. That was our what should I call it, the moral or the business compass, which used to help us evolve ourselves. But now it has become it's just not top bottom. The people at the bottom of the pyramid have that intelligence which actually the leadership required to make those decisions for the upcoming time frame. So how do we establish this balance in the entire ecosystem? The goal setting processes need to evolve. Like, I typically always like to give example of Google here, where they have a committed goal setting process, where what commitment you want to make for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, upcoming year. And then there is an aspirational goal setting process, which is a long-term indicator of your direction, in which direction will you work. So these things need to evolve. We need to, from being SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, go towards, OKRs and balanced scorecard kind of methodologies, which can actually create more stable thinking processes and, sets in the organization. So that's my thought on it, Jerry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kshitij, for sharing that. I really like your reflection, because I think you're forcing people to reflect more. So instead of coming up with just answers on HR skills that are directly applicable to you, Kshitij is asking us to go back and reflect on what is your goal, what is the shift that you need to make as a business, what is your aspirations, how can you evolve that goal setting to more advanced processes like OKRs, how can you measure. And I think these are skills that we need to develop for ourselves and also answer for ourselves. So I think that's a great reflection there. Vikas, before moving to the question on challenges, I wanted to get your impressions on this question as well. How would you approach this, question of keeping up with technology and the change? And what are some challenge areas maybe that you are seeing in developing HR skills as well?
I mean, I so want to comment and respond to what Kshitij just said. But then I think you want a direct answer, right? But still, something that I would say, what Kshitij spoke about is something that we've implemented here. We call it the enterprise performance management. Every employee in the organization has a proactive nudge that is sent out to him. That's the problem with performance management system, Kshitij. Sorry, I'm not answering your question, Jerry. I just have to respond to Kshitij.
That's fine.
Yeah, so typically it's a judge and jury approach, right? At the end of the year, and a forced ranking. So what Kshitij spoke about is so true, and I have goosebumps because I thought not too many people in India at least were talking about this. So at the heart of this is not just I think goal setting, but it is also about establishing a causality or a cause and effect relationship between goals. And then Kshitij, the only one little disconnect I have with you, because I come from a product and e-commerce, IT, etc., and then suddenly moved into pharma. I came with a similar Google-centric approach on OKRs till the time I realized that in an assembly line operation or in a manufacturing kind of a setup, that doesn't work. You still have to go down to the brass tacks and actually have those SLAs, goals, blah blah blah, all written down. But the good part is, because you have so much data, churning out predictives and prescriptives is very easy, provided you have the data lake. And that's where the answer to your question is, Jerry. I think it's important for, if you're talking about HR professionals and their skill sets, I think they need to go beyond the general, the usual, and move into things like, I'm a big fan of data. I think, data gives you power. It helps you take the right decision. It helps you inform the people. And those are some of the skills that we need to get. Now, coming to challenges, okay. I understand we don't have much time left, so I'll just be quick and breezy about this. Coming to challenges of adoption, I think the change begins with I, not C. When HR people, we as a team, when we go out talking and preaching, hey, listen, you guys need to use an app, do this and do that, but then we ourselves don't do it. It's very, very painful, because we tend to think that we know it all, right? So I think that's one of the biggest change. And once we get past that, then we build an ecosystem of learning, okay? And I very strongly believe in learning academies, not centralized L&D functions, where business is the owner of learning. L&D is the curator of those learnings, and that's how you basically drive, and then designing the WIFM. So if you ask me, HR's role in encouraging a learning ecosystem, the organization, is to create a WIFM for every user. WIFM would stand for what's in it for me. Why should I do this learning? Am I going to get a growth promotion, blah, blah, blah? Are there some points, that I get? How do you gamify all of those? That's our real job. It's not to, go and preach. Those days are behind us. We are all adults. Nobody likes to be sold. Nobody likes to be sold. Let's just believe that. We like to buy. Okay. Similarly, nobody likes to be trained. We like to learn. So I think that's where HR people can play a role. I keep saying HR people as if it's some third party entity. I'm talking about myself. Okay. A lot of times my boss comes and tells me, hey, listen, you need to learn regression. I don't know. I don't have time. The other day he said, you got to learn Python. I said, no, I'm an HR guy. But the fact is, these are important skills for me. Because and Python is the easiest, it's and then you have no code environments. If I understand that, you have no idea the amount of predictive models that Kshitij was talking about that I can churn out. I can do POCs around. These are skills important to me, because I am possibly a talent head. And a talent head, when he goes and has a conversation with a manager, let's say, on promotions, you need some data points. And I'm churning out those data points for you with predictive analytics to say, if you promote Vikas to the next role, he's not going to be productive. Now, that's the power of, using data as an HR professional, which I need. Okay, sorry, I took too much of your time. Back to you, Jerry.
Yeah, so just Jerry, I wanted to add, because you flagged it very right. While I do this leadership consulting and talk to founders about vision, mission, and building that passion in the organization that people love to connect to, a lot of time it's, I would also want to bring it to our audience notice also, that it's not always relevant for everybody. Let's not just impose this on them and look at the people without a very clear sense of purpose as inferior beings. Reason being, the other day I was doing this, I had a chance to meet Dave Ulrich during the Tech HR, right? So great event, Jerry, kudos to your team on that. While I was talking to him, he was also highlighting about this aspect that, there are jobs, you got to look at it. And I went to one session where there was an aviation industry CHRO sitting there. The aircraft maintenance engineer, by the time he gets the job, they are 31, 32 in age. They have a loan of 1.5 CR on their heads. They really don't care about your mission and vision. They really want to get rid of the loan on their heads, and they want to get married in life, right? So your customer, a lot of times, will also complicate the fundamental concepts of the book, the way it teaches you. So building that EQ, listening to people, it's, you cannot replace these human values, no matter amount of regenerative AI you bring in, contextual AI you bring in, it will still stay relevant. And this is where HR as a community, will always stand tall, is what I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kshitij, for adding that, and Vikas for sharing your insights as well. So I wanted to, I know we have some audience questions as well, but I wanted to quickly ask, do a round of like a rapid answers, if you will. So what is your approach to learning in the flow of work? So as a professional, as you are conducting your daily job and work, how do you find the time to learn, and how do you manage it? Let's say. Shall we start with Dimple here first?
Yeah, I think when Vikas was talking, I was just, relating to this example, what we have implemented and incorporated in Barco HR team. So we have weekly meeting, HR meeting, and what we do after our meeting is over, we always pick up one topic and we discuss about that topic. So there is a cadence and there is a regular meeting. So every team member is given a topic beforehand, 15 days in advance, and that person prepares. They prepare the PPT, and then a lot of work, research work they do on that topic. So like what are the best practices? How can you have the best TA analysis, or what are the best TA practices? We also had one session on the emerging trends of market where we spoke about AI and HR. So a lot of good topics. So I think this is one of the way where you can inculcate the habit of learning, continuous learning and compulsory mandatory kind of a learning. So everybody attends that meeting and then we all learn together.
Absolutely, Vikas, and then maybe Kshitij. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not in the Dave Ulrich club. Josh Person is my god. Okay, so for me, it's him and nobody else, Kshitij. But here's the thing. Okay, I mean, I learn through whatever research materials are published, etc., etc. But I think your question was more on the learning in the flow of work. But for me personally, I mean, it's like, if I had to come to this, if I had known I'm going to be speaking to the thought leaders like Dimple and Kshitij, trust me, I would have read a little bit more on these subjects, and then I would come prepared. I have those resources, so Google, ChatGPT, or for that matter AI, HR, everything helps.
Absolutely.
It's quite a personal question, as personal as making love, but I'll still give my learning hack. How do I learn? Very simple method. Just go about taking a book, right? This is something which I would like to give to everybody. This is something which I have created as my method of learning, and it actually works pretty well for me. So before I start reading any book, I go about reading the preface of it, the context that is there. I read the index and the order, and then I quantum learn. I give before I start that book, I give myself 2 to 3 days of time where I brainstorm in myself that what are my line of items, because you've already read HR. We all have read HR. We have all gone through brilliant writers. We all understand what it is. So I mostly go through index. I quantum learn what are my line of thoughts on those items. And then I open the book after a couple of days. I go about understanding that how the practical knowledge that I have seen across into the ground and what line of thoughts that I had, how is the writer different from that? So it essentially does nothing, but it changes the monologue that you have with the book into a dialogue where you can actually, make more out of it. So this is something which I kind of utilize for myself.
Thank you, Kshitij, for sharing that. And thank you, all of you. I think we have three different modes that were presented. I think I like Dimple's institutional way of presentation. Everyone gets a chance and we learn from each other. I think Vikas also shared the point of reflections, right? Before getting into learning or any activity, how can you sort of inculcate it? And I like Kshitij's point about quantum learning. Just spend some time brainstorming about what you're learning. I think that will really help you. Okay, I think before we jump into the audience questions, we have this surprise announcement, this ebook launch. And this is an ebook that we're launching again in partnership with Keka. It's on unlocking capabilities, equipping HR for emerging business growth. And it's part of the SME Corner initiative. And it's a one-stop guide that's really packed with a lot of actionable insights. And it's curated capability framework for building new age HR skills. I want to invite Kshitij to share a little bit more about this ebook. And you will find more details about this. Kshitij, would you like to share about this ebook as well?
Thank you, Jerry. And thanks to People Matters team for partnering with Keka to bring this guidebook. Right, so it is based on performance management, the ebook. It will actually help you in creating performance frameworks. The way I look at it, it's just any, like capability in terms of HR, right? Be it performance or any other dimension, it's always an incremental learning process. So a lot of times now, if you look at the times, that phase has gone where you have to go about building your own method of learning it. You can just go about understanding from the best practices of the people who have already done it, that what are the best things to learn in what phases. So when I talk about phases, there are very common phases. Like, let's say if I talk about level 1 for HR, the beginner phase, you have to learn about basic HR operations. You have to learn about how to understand business goals, how strategic workforce planning is done, how performance management is done, how learning and development operates, right? While once you have operated as a beginner, if you go about, then there is development phase where you can build talent acquisition, leadership development, HR analytics, change management, employer branding, and so forth, right? So these levels and all you will be able to explore out in form of hacks from this book. It will give you an information which you can keep in your memory as an image, and it always helps in having more conversation or keeping your. So this is what you can actually get from the handbook, and I would not really talk more about it. Otherwise, I think the downloads will decrease. Jerry, back to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, with that, I think we'll move to the audience questions right now. We have about 10 minutes. So Prasenjit asks, how do you understand the ever-evolving human behavior and thrive? The various stages bifurcate the majority of the workforce. So how should HR absorb and act? So if I were to sort of maybe paraphrase or summarize this, it's about how do you identify the behaviors to thrive, and maybe how can HR sort of inculcate it? Kshitij, would you like to take this?
No, I would want Vikas to
Okay.
take it, like he's
All
an
right,
expert in
sure.
this.
Yeah, the HR leaders first there. Go on, Vikas.
Yeah. No, so I have a marketing answer to this. Just change the thing to a customer. Okay, so in e-commerce, the way people started, I remember when I joined e-commerce in 2010, all these marketers used to understand customer behaviors, and they used to say, how do people really shop? Okay, so what do they do when they go to an e-commerce website? Number of clicks, what? So you remember this Flipkart thingy where Flipkart came up with reviews when people had to buy electronics. They observed that people were going to many other websites and reviewing electronics and then coming back to the page and making a purchase. So Flipkart said, hey, listen, I'm going to put those reviews right here and there. So you don't have to go anywhere else. So the way this happens is through something known as customer experience journey maps. Okay, now the same practice has been applied by HR folks. We do that. So today we have the consulting wherewithal, and this has got nothing to do with tech, okay? To understand that different personas in an organization, because different people behave differently, okay? So different personas in an organization, how do they behave in different situations? What are their moments of truth? There's an empathy map that what do they, think, feel, do in each of those stages. And as an output of that, you get exactly what you're looking for, which is to say that which are those important stages, okay, in the entire life cycle, entire processes that they engage with. What are the important moments of truth and how do you need to handle those? So the answer here is something known as employee experience journey maps. So Prasenjit, I would really encourage you to, kind of do what I do, Google this stuff out. Okay, I mean, there's enough literature out there. A lot of HR professionals have done this. It's a time-consuming exercise. Takes a lot of, understanding of basic marketing. But if you're able to crack this, you'll get the answer straight up. Back to you, Jerry.
Fantastic. So Shamya asks, what tools are required by an HR professional to inculcate a positive attitude among employees, which help in bringing change in the organization? Dimple, would you want to take this? I think positive attitude for them and for us.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I was recollecting my days of military. So this is one tool which I learned in Air Force, the power of human connection. Whatever technology, whatever tool you embrace, but power of human connection never fails you. So what we do in at Barco also is, as HR business partner or as HR, we have a lot of candid conversations on roundtable sessions with our employees, where we talk to them, we take their pulse, and where we really have that empathy, the skill which any HR person needs, and we talk to them heart to heart, and we try to solve a lot of issues there only. So power of human connection, I would say, is one tool which will never make any leader fail. So communication has to be continuous. I remember in defense, we used to say that if the communication is broken, you can even lose the war. So it is same. It is everywhere. It is in the corporate world. It is in your personal lives. So very important to use this tool of human connection, I would say. Because if you want to add something.
No, no, I admire efforts like anything. My wife said, I hear this every day, in the dinner table. My wife tells me that, listen, the way we guys handle this stuff, you guys in corporate have not even cracked it. I mean, some of the SOPs that you all have, I mean, they have an SOP for everything, starting from a terrorist attack to how to build a public toilet. I mean, this is absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, building positive attitude is also about, some bit of rewarding, right? Let's not ignore that at the end of the day, we are all professionals. Unlike, let's say, if you were working in an NGO or let's say defense, where there is a very strong sense of purpose. I've tried for a decade to get my wife to quit Air Force and come to Dubai. She would not. She's a hardcore Fauji. She would not leave. So I had to come back. Okay. So at the end of the day, in a corporate setup, I think some kind of a reward in recognition is extremely important. Let's call it out. I mean, if somebody's done the right kind of a work, and provided that there is no recency bias, and for that matter, there's no bias, and then the person is being rewarded for true behaviors, for true performances, then I think that also helps, to encourage that in the long term.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have another question from Rajita, and Rajita asks, HR is always known to facilitate, coordinate for learning events. Who should HR be looking up to in the macro setup of an organization for identifying their learning needs? I think we've spoken about a lot of ideas, but I guess maybe if I could sort of articulate this as maybe the business aspect of it, how can HR get that input from a macro perspective? How do they partner with the business to identify HR specific learnings? Maybe we could share some reflections on that. Vikas, Dimple, would you like to share? And then I'll go to Kshitij as well.
Right, I can take it.
Sure.
Who to go to as an HR? First of all, like the question is a little ambiguous. Rachita, I'm really sorry. Right? It's not clear to any of us, but we'll still go about answering the closest possible thing that we are understanding here. So one thing that I see is like you have to coordinate kind of for all the learning events that happen across in the organization for people itself. Now, the simple way of doing it, training need identification is one essential exercise to begin with, where you can go about understanding which of your employees has what training needs. Who do you want to understand it from? Largely, if you identify the stakeholder, number one is self. Always the self. Do not ignore the self. No matter managerial recommendation is for other trainings and stuff. Go about understanding from the individual what trainings do they want to do, right? How most of the times their position, how they're placed also defines that, which manager cannot answer. So self is one aspect. Go about identifying other stakeholders for every single designation or role which is there in your organization. So for every role, there could be one reporting manager, could be L2 manager, could be a complex project management situation or a quad also. So all the different stakeholders that deal with the individual mostly have an idea that where are the weaknesses for the individual where they can actually work on. So designing, having that training assessment as a step where you formally go about discovering these weaknesses that people have, and then eventually designing a program is something which will work. For the standards one, you can define a bare minimum number. Like let's say if these are some of the commonly required trainings in our businesses which our people should have, which is probably related to the goals that people have, could be related to the competencies that we expect those people to have, could be related to the values that these people should inherit while coming to work. So all those you have to identify, and you have to create that framework where votings can happen. Manager can assign people, and you can calculate the weightage of training, that which training, how many people are required, and you can go about defining the budgets and quality, keeping that in mind. So many ways. I can, if you want to understand more on this, you can always get in touch with me directly. We will go about answering it.
Fantastic. Dimple, anything you would like to add on this?
I think Kshitij said it all right. It totally, HR strategy is always, HR is most adaptable and agile, department, I would say. So we always adopt and, align our strategy with the business strategy. So it comes when the learning needs come for a particular business. So you know that these are the trainings which are required to be very close partner with the business. So then you always try to align that those learnings also with the business. So business is one of your stakeholder. What Kshitij also said. So it's always aligning your own learning strategy with the strategy of business. self, of course, I think we should always compete with ourselves. What is going in the market, what is there in the industry, what I need to pick up. So this is one thing which I reinforce what Kshitij also mentioned. And important to be, with the time. And I hear a lot of podcasts. So it's very important that you should, that's a promise I have made to myself, that every day I'll hear at least one HR podcast, because that's actually, increases or enhances your knowledge. So this is what I can add to Kshitij's answer, I would say.
Absolutely. Vikas, anything else you would like to add to this?
No, I
Right.
mean, everything
All
has
right.
been
So,
spoken.
Dimple, do you
Just
have any?
more of these webinars. I think if more and more HR professionals talk and attend these webinars, I think a lot of this would help. Attend those conferences, etc. Read up and
Absolutely.
look at the mirror more often. Yeah.
And also, I think what these kind of webinar, we all are there in this webinar. It's always reverse mentoring. We learn from each other. So I have learned so much today from Vikas and from Kshitij. So these kind of webinars should continue. People should attend them and should take values out of it.
Same here.
Definitely, ma'am. Like I have no formal degree in HR. I was a techie. Kind of have become an HR influencer now just by listening and talking to people. There's so much out there, and after a small while, it all makes sense actually. Every single a very new HR executive which has given a 2 months can give you a perspective which maybe a 30-year-old veteran can't. So always open to that idea would be great.
No, you are the role model. You did it so well. You are a role model, I would say.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I will wrap it up here. We're on time, but I want to thank Kshitij, Dimple, and Vikas for sharing their time and sharing their insights. A lot of practical key takeaways, a lot of ideas that you can implement, a lot of tips that you can implement in your own skilling journey for yourself as an individual. So thank you so much for sharing that. We will also we'll share the gift. The gift is an ebook. We will share the links for it as well. And a special thanks to our audience for participating in your polls and as well sharing your questions and views. Have a great day, everyone, and stay connected for more such exciting sessions. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks,
It has
guys.
been a pleasure and privilege to be here.
Pleasure's all
Thank
mine.
you.
We'll
Bye.
connect with you.